Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Security Confidential. Today, we are really honored to have Ethan join us. Ethan, in addition to being a friend, he's the executive director of Business and Economic Development at Slippery Rock University and the founder of the Pittsburgh Business Exchange, which is how I met him. And Pittsburgh Business Exchange is the largest and fastest growing professional business networking group in the Northeastern US. The organization has grown to over 35,000 members and subscribers, and Ethan has cracked the code when it comes to bringing business owners of all sizes together for the purpose of professional development and viable community outreach. Thank you for joining us, Ethan.
Thanks for having me, Manoj. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast and video cast here today.
Networking. There is a lot to business networking. It is more of an art than a science. And Ethan's going to give us a little bit of a discourse on how this works.
Well, I'll start off with a little story. I was asked to speak as the keynote for the Slippery Rock University senior class as they were departing for graduation for their senior transition conference. And as the keynote, I told everybody in the audience, I said, if everybody pays attention to this talk and does everything that I tell you, is just some simple little nuances with networking. Everybody in here will have a job within 30 days if you don't already have one. And if you already have a job, you have an opportunity to have a better one. And the entire audience all of a sudden kind of looked up and just started paying attention immediately. And what was surprising to me is, I'll skip to the end, I gave every single person in the room a postmarked postcard
Okay.
with a stamp on it with my address on it. And all they needed to do was write me a note telling me a little bit about some of their goals, who they are, and a way to get in touch with them. And out of the 100, I don't remember in that particular breakout, I think there were 150, 200 students, don't really remember. I only got about 17 of these little notes back in the mail, which was shocking to me, which is why today there are 3 parts of my talk as I dive into networking, business networking explained.
Okay.
And the part that I just spoke about was follow-up. And there are a lot of misconceptions about business networking out there. Everything revolves around human nature and business networking. And a lot of people think that you can just go to a meeting, or that you just go to a meeting. Networking is showing up, talking to a few people, telling them a little bit about what you do, collecting some business cards, and hoping that they call you, or maybe you call them. And what happens is you end up with a whole stack full of business cards with a rubber band around it on your desk that's 1.5 inches thick, and about 3 months later you have no space left on your desk, and you're flipping through business cards trying to remember who the heck everybody is, and throwing all of them away except the realtors that have their picture on them, because you actually know who the heck they were because their photos on there. So let's dive in and talk about the 3 parts of business networking, and let me explain what really should happen if you want to stand out and have all the relationships that you've always wanted to have.
Okay.
So there's the pre and the prep. There's the actual networking process, which, by the way, is very short. It's only about 10% of this entire process, which is the part that everybody thinks is showing up, talking to people, getting cards, building relationships, maybe sending an email, maybe not. And then the follow-up, which is probably about, I want to say 80% of the process. So the pre and the prep is really sitting down before you show up to any event and really identifying who you want to meet. If you're somebody who sells a specific product, like wastewater management or something like that, with chemicals, you probably, and you're going to an energy conference and you want to talk to people in oil and gas with a very specific use for the type of product, with the polluted water that comes out from fracking or something like that, you have a very targeted audience. So oftentimes before you go to an event, the first thing that anyone should ever do is request a guest list. Oftentimes they won't provide it if you ask for all of the contact information. Nobody does that. But if you say, look, I'm just looking to see who's showing up, I was wondering if you could provide me with a list of the companies that are going to be in attendance, or maybe the companies I know with the Pittsburgh Business Exchange, we provide a list of all of the attendees to every event with the first name, last name, company, and job title. So, and we actually provide that list to every single person who registers for an event so that they can kind of peruse through the list and identify who they want to network with. Surprisingly, when I look at the results and when my wife, who's actually running the company, goes through all of the click rates to see how many people have clicked on the guest list before the event, it's only about 60%. So just a little more than half actually click through the list to actually go through to even look at it. But there's this pre part, which is the pre-networking. And this is so important. Everybody has LinkedIn. I would say 95, 96% of anybody who you want to network with in the first place has a LinkedIn profile. If you have the list in advance and you know who you want to talk to, and you're showing up to a business networking conference or trade show, and those people are registered to attend, if you send a simple LinkedIn message in your pre-networking saying, hi, my name's Ethan, and I'm with this company. I noticed that you're going to the same conference I am tomorrow evening from 6 to 8. And I just wanted to know if you want to show up a few minutes early. I'd love to greet you and buy you a cocktail, or at least get to know you. And I look forward to meeting you at the event tomorrow. Ethan, it's really that simple. In fact, if there are only 5 or 6 people on that list that you need to get to know, what's crazy is you can send out a LinkedIn message, or you can look them up online and send them an email. I mean, most people's email addresses are accessible just by Googling their name and their company and contact information. And oftentimes you get a response back immediately. And in that response has all of the contact information of that person typically for you to stay in touch with them. So even if they miss the event or don't show up to the event, or by chance you don't show up to the event, you used a really small link and crack to really crawl into to build that relationship because you have a common interest in a simple event that has or hasn't happened. So now you have that contact.
I got a question for you on that.
Sure.
When like some of the events we'd go to, there's a lot of mega corps there. So if I want to meet the CIO of Acme Corporation, right? There's probably 10,000 people that want to meet the CIO of Acme Corporation. Chances are that guy has got his LinkedIn profile turned off to where you can't even send him a message. And his email's probably filtered by some gatekeeper. Is there any tidbit in that instance?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, you know, there was a podcast that I listened to a couple of years ago called, it was something a little, it was called I effing love marketing or something like that. And it was really catchy, you know. And I was like, oh, I got to subscribe to this. And there was this bald guy that was talking about the art of networking. And he mentioned some things at the very beginning of the call, how to get in touch with people. He's like, hey, let me tell you how I got in touch with the Pope so I could have my buddy's wedding at the Vatican. And I'm listening.
Okay, that's
how the heck did you do that? So what's really interesting is if you really want to stand out and you really want to do networking that sets you apart from everybody else, that LinkedIn thing, yeah, it works well. Actually, it works extremely well. But if you really want to separate yourself, this is a handwritten card. You know, it has your logo on it. It's blank on the back. It looks like it's in an A6 envelope. You can buy stationery that just has your name on it. If this conference is a week in advance and you know that he or she is going to be there, write a handwritten note. It will get to the person because it's handwritten, because it looks personal. And if their receptionist or secretary or administrative assistant opens it up for them, it'll end up on their desk and they'll read it and they'll see your name. Now, if you did that and did a LinkedIn request, now you hit them twice. So they're now expecting to see you at this event. And if the LinkedIn doesn't work or the email doesn't work or they're too busy to check all that stuff because it's flooded with a bunch of other solicitations, this trumps all, period. So they're going to get this note and it's going to take up real estate on their desk and they're going to be curious. And when they meet you, they're going to be like, hey, that was pretty first class. Nobody does it anymore. It's a dying art, and it separates the people that are applying for jobs. It separates people looking for internships. It separates people looking for business leads from everybody else, because it's just a classy way to introduce yourself, and it primes you for a positive interaction before you even meet the person. By the way, all this is taking place before you even show up or board a plane to go to a conference or go to your car to drive downtown or to some networking event. It all happens in advance, period. So the pre and prep is the most omitted and forgotten about or non-practiced art in networking. You gotta lay a foundation so that when you walk in, the level of respect and expectations is already at a bar where they like you before they even know you, because you took the time to interact. And that's just human nature.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, and it is omitted. I know I've been very guilty of it. If you just walk into an event typically, and that's not the way to do things.
And by the way, you know what's great is a lot of people don't even network, which just blows my mind, because that's the only way to actually have that in-person human physical presence with that person of bonding. You know, people do business with people, they don't do business with technology. So in person and at very best, virtual meetings are so important because you see those facial expressions, and you shake that hand, you accept a business card, you can smile, and they can feel the sincerity whenever you're interacting. That's by sending an email or any other means, and trying to throw up on somebody with some sort of spamish type thing, and using LinkedIn and copy paste send, copy paste send.
Right.
You know, it works a little bit, but business networking is so important. But there is an art to it. So the pre and the prep is the first of the three steps. And we kind of talked about that. There are a lot of other things that we could talk about with the pre and the prep. Honestly, if you have a random, you know, the post office will mail anything. I mean, you could get a coconut. You could literally go to the supermarket, buy a coconut, put a stamp on it, and then put a label on it, and mail somebody a coconut, and magic marker your message. Hey, I just wanted to send you a coconut. I'm looking forward to seeing you at this event. They're going to get that and go, this person's crazy. I can't wait to meet. Send me a freaking coconut, right? You can send anything in the mail. My friend John Rulin, I believe it was John, who's now
an author. As long as it's legal, I might want to add.
Right, yeah, you got to double check. You know, they'll mail almost anything. I mean, you can a brochure. If you're at a restaurant and there's a menu there from Eaton Park or something there, and you look at it, write in big words, and then you fold it up, staple it, and say, hey, I was thinking about you while I was eating my soup at Eaton Park. I thought I would drop you a line. I didn't have any stationery, so here's the menu, or here's the placemat. You know,
have you known anyone that's actually done that?
It's great. The reaction is great. And sometimes I'll get a phone call because I'll put my phone number, and they're like, dude, you sent me a placemat or something like that. So it's just kind of fun. Another thing you can do is send them a package, like literally a garden hose, and say, hey, I'm sending you this hose because I heard you were getting hosed by your partners that are blah, blah, blah. And they're like, you sent me a garden hose. I remember one time I sent a car dealer two remote control helicopters that were like $100 each without the remote controls, right? And we had talked about a tentative appointment, and I knew he wasn't going to confirm, so I overnighted him 2 remote control helicopters that said, hey, I can't wait to fly these around your office Thursday morning at 9 a.m. I have the remote controls, so I just put batteries in them. I'll see you then. And the guy looks at me like this, and I'm sitting down across his desk and goes, you know, you're crazy, right? Who sends remote? And he never sent, we never flew them around. He actually gave them to his nephews. But that right there is a conversation piece and a way to network and confirm appointments. But that's all pre.
Okay.
That's all the pre stuff. And you know what? I could talk about this whole section for an hour, but we have to move to the actual process of business networking. Okay. Do you have any questions or anything so far, Manoj, or you want me to keep moving along here?
No, okay, keep moving along. I mean, the helicopter, send a postcard. I guess there is a question here. In this era of COVID, is there any changes to the tactics that you would suggest making? Because if I send a coconut, chances are the guy's not in the office, and it's gonna rot, and then he's gonna be really pissed. He's
Well,
gonna
that's
be
the thing.
like,
Coconuts last forever. I wouldn't send a pear or a banana in the mail, USPS. You know what I'm saying?
God, I
This
got
Google
flies in
unique
my office.
things to send to people in the mail. You'd be surprised what the USPS will actually mail if you take a stamp and slap it on there. I learned this whenever I was in Hawaii and I was sending postcards to people, and I saw this little person and they were selling coconuts for $5, and they said for 20 you can write a note on it and you can mail it. And I did. And I sent one to my girlfriend at the time, and I sent one to my parents. And my dad he just couldn't believe I sent him a coconut from Hawaii, and it mailed, So have fun with that. It's all about having fun. And I tell you what, if you make somebody smile and do something they're never going to forget, anytime they think of you, they'll bring it up and say, oh, that's the dude that sent me a coconut. And then you get their account, and it's $1 million account because you mailed like a $3 coconut in the mail. So.
But you created that personal relationship. You stood out amongst the crowd, because nowadays I can tell you, my LinkedIn box is flooded with garbage.
Garbage.
Oh
Hi,
my God,
my name's John Smith, and I'm with so-and-so Corporation. I was wondering if we could connect. Maybe there's something that I could help you with, because I'm a helpful person and I like to network, and maybe we should be connections and see how we can be. I'm just like, oh my gosh, delete. Like I could pull up my LinkedIn account right now, share my screen with you, and show you the joke of a message, and it happens every day. And don't be that guy. It needs to be personal. It can't be copy paste send, and it has to be purposeful. So we got to move on to the actual networking. So now you're entering the conference.
Yep.
You're on the floor of the trade show. You're at a BNI meeting, and there are all these people. And the first thing I would tell people is, believe it or not, there's an entrance, and you have to play to the tune of human nature to be noticed, because you really want people to come to you. And not to sound manipulative, but you want to take advantage of every opportunity to build relationships that you can. And if you can be a magnet, it's a lot easier than being somebody seeking with a fishing rod. So when you enter the room, if there is a room, you pause right in the doorway and you look around, and you don't even move, and you just look around, and you kind of shake your head, you smile a little bit, and you enter the room. And if you show up fashionably late, don't just go in and look stressed out with a clipboard and sit down and put your head down and be like, sorry. That's the lamest thing ever. If you're going to show up with intent. Show up at the door. Think about your posture. Look around, enter, and what happens is you'll see all the heads at the table turn like this. You now own the room. Anybody within 20-foot proximity is going to see out of the corner of their eye, because that's human nature. Is it a friend or a foe? That's just how the amygdala works. Okay. You look at that person, and all of a sudden, they see your posture and your confidence, and that's your entrance. The other thing that people don't think about is how you present yourself. I say suit and tie. I don't care where you're going, what you're doing, what industry, unless it's specifically says Hawaiian or some sort of, very rare attire. But suit and tie, and the same equivalent for women, business professional, just dress sharp. Well, you've heard it a million times.
Well, Ethan, I know you live and die by. I have never not seen you in a suit and tie. In fact, you're in a tie right now. But do you think that that's also your industry specific, right? Because like in high tech, I can tell you about our industry. A lot of people might get a little frazzled by that. They would rather meet someone in a jacket and a simple polo shirt or something.
So
right?
I remember when I met Joe Sheets, the owner of one of the largest convenience store chains in the United States. I think they do $6.5 billion
right.
in sales. They sell more cheese sticks and hot dogs than every single baseball stadium in the United States combined. every year. It's impressive. And I remember he showed up to the Omni William Penn when I requested him as a speaker for our speaker series, the Pittsburgh Executive Speaker Series. And he came in, and I was looking around. I'm like, he was supposed to be here. Well, he was there. He was in just slacks. They might have even been corduroy pants. I don't remember, and just a button-down shirt. He just looked so casual and comfortable, and I was impressed. You know, you don't have to wear a suit and tie if you're an executive necessarily. However, if you're trying to court somebody, and you got to look sharp. And you got to play to your industry, and we could talk about that more. But at the end of the day, however you dress well, and dress a little bit better than everybody else. I say it takes 4 minutes to put on a tie. It's 4 degrees warmer, and you do 400% better. Period.
Okay,
that's something I would remember. So anyway, so you're walking in, you look sharp, and you want to have a message. And a lot of times people don't really know what to. It's comical. You're like, so what do you do? And it's just everybody leads with that question.
Right.
And what I have learned over the years is a simple thing called FORM. FORM.
Okay, what is that?
Family, occupation, recreation, and then your message. And if you just form people, you will walk away with a friend, and it's just simple networking. So you ask them, so hey, you from the area? Do you have family? So, oh yeah, I have. And you always want to lead with family, because that's usually the nearest and dearest thing to their heart. And they'll end up talking about their daughter, or if they don't have kids, they'll talk about their cat or their dog. And then you have some kind of basis to, engage in conversation. And then the O is occupation. So yeah, you're obviously at the energy conference, or you're obviously at the, the sports, conference or networking group or BNI or whatever. And you ask them, so what do you do for a living? You don't say, hey, what do you do? He says, what do you do for a living? What business industry are you in? And then they'll start talking. And you want to be the ones asking the questions, because if they're the ones doing the talking, you're just a listener, you're basically absorbing all this information, trying to transcribe, is this person somebody that you can do business with or not. R is recreation. This is always fun, because so you play any sports? I mean, what do you do for fun around here? And you'll find something unique about this. Like, well, I don't really play sports or anything, but I collect coins. And you're like, oh my gosh, my dad collects coins, or whatever. And then you go to your message. And this is the most important part of the conversation.
Okay.
You just primed them to be receiving, welcoming of your message. And you just got to be honest. I think it's really funny. You just say what you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes I'll watch all of these rookie financial planners that show up to events and try and network and say, hey, you want to go get a cup of coffee? Let's learn about
That's the most annoying bunch of people.
And by the way, no, you got to hand it to financial planners, and especially beginners, because they have to build their own book of business from scratch, and it is not easy. And there should be more courses taught about business networking before they get thrown to the wolves, because you get your butt kicked. And they're asking, hey, do you want to go get a cup of coffee, so that they can barf all over you at some little restaurant about, you're planning your financial future and how they can help you with your needs so you can retire wealthy. I mean, I wish people would just say, do the form thing, and the message is, hey, I just got started with my job at blank financial institution, and I'm trying to pick up new clients. I have a bunch of cool products that I offer, and I'm just trying to set up appointments with people that might need what I need, and that's why I'm here. And oftentimes, if they say that, the person on the opposite end says, well, you know what, I'm new to Pittsburgh and I don't have a financial planner. Or, I just moved into a new house and I actually have some plumbing jobs that I need to be done. Or you know what, we just redesigned our corporate logo and we need all of our print material redone, designed, and printed. Right. So when you say your message, just be clear with what you're trying to accomplish, because you're basically indirectly asking them for help. And if they like you because you formed them, then they're going to try and say, oh, you know what, I don't need it, but that guy over there is my boss. I tell you what, he he was just talking about buying a fleet of cars for, his top agents or whatever. So that's the form. It's really important, is you're basically priming them, getting to know them, and at the same time preparing them to receive your message to help you get what you want, which is usually sales or relationships.
And you're not
So,
wasting their time, because I can
no.
tell you, my biggest fear as an executive with this, whenever I meet a salesperson, is these people are going to waste my time. Here we go again. They're going to tell me all about the product and all this, that, and the other. And then they're going to say, well, it'll cost you a king's ransom. And I'm like, well, if you would have told me that an hour ago, we could have saved ourselves both a whole bunch of time
So,
here.
Manoj, here, let's do this. When we're done with this call, I want you to drive to Burger King or McDonald's. You choose. I want you to buy a Happy Meal or a nice deluxe package, and as soon as you pass the trash can, just throw it all in the trash and just drive home. Just basically go there for no reason, waste money, waste time, and waste food. How does that sound? That's how I look at people who sign up for a networking event, show up to a networking event, didn't do any didn't do any networking, and then they go home with a bunch of business cards that they don't follow up with. It's like showing up to a place, buying something, and throwing away it immediately. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. So when people show up, it's important to be prepared and identify who you want to meet, find those individuals, form them, walk away with those 5 relationships that you wanted anyway, and then do step number 3, which is follow up, which can be a lot of fun.
Okay.
So there's
tell
a
us a
lot
little bit
more
about that.
Well, I want to tell you that this call is I believe only 45 minutes to an hour long. So unfortunately, I can't talk about all the nuances of networking, but there is some really advanced stuff when it comes to networking.
Well,
And
give
I
us some
actually create.
nuggets here. You
Want some nuggets?
got me intrigued. Yeah, like with the coconut, you got my attention. I'm
All
just
right. Well,
like
there's
wondering what you're
lots
going
of
to say
the
next.
coconuts of networking. Well, we'll call them nuggets. So um, there are different types of people that show up to events, and I don't want to be derogatory or anything like that. So I'll just talk about some of the. And by the way, when I say derogatory, I mean there are different labels that I personally put on people that don't know how to network, like the sprayers or the hostage takers or the stage 5 clingers. They're all out there, and they can waste your time. And there are just, for instance, if you get stuck talking to somebody who's really interested in talking to you that won't stop talking about themselves, and you're there for an hour and they've just eaten into 5 minutes of your time, which is like almost 10% of the entire event that you wasted on somebody that you probably can't do business with and you can't find an exit. Asking questions and interrupting is okay. And you just remember their name and says, hey, Bob, did you get anything to eat yet? I'm going to go over to the table and grab something, or excuse yourself to the restroom, or ask them a question. Do you know where the restroom is by chance? Or, there are simple ways to get away from people. And by the way, you can always tell by where people's feet are pointed at a networking event if they're really into your conversation or not. If you're having a conversation with person, oh yeah, Manoj, let's say you and I are engaging in conversation, and I'm telling you all about my business and what I can do to help you save money and time and how great I am. And I just look down at your shoes and they're not pointed directly at me. If one foot or both feet, especially, are pointed away from you, that's human nature already prepping them to get the heck out of there. And you can look
By
at
the way,
somebody's feet.
are you a psychology major in
No,
college?
but I tell you what, when you do business networking as your profession, you kind of pick up on a lot of different nuances, and if somebody, and we could go really deep and have a 4-hour class. When women touch their hair when they're listening to you, they are so listening to what you're saying. And men, if they have their hand on their face when they're talking to you, or if they are like trying to focus, because men have not ADD, but they have this shiny dime syndrome. They're basically holding themselves still to pay attention to what you're saying. And it's a lot of little things that I could talk about during business networking. Another thing that you can do is, after you just formed somebody, oh, this is great, you now know their pet's name, what they do for a living, what's happening in why they're there. And you see somebody else who clearly does not feel like they belong there, and it's their first event or they're shy or whatever, and you go
Right.
right up to them and say, I love this. Now you're with the person that you just formed, right? So you know
Right.
them relatively well. You just met them. You go up to somebody you don't know and say, hi, I'm Ethan. I'm with XYZ Corporation. So did you just show up? Did you just get here? Oh yeah, I just got here. Great. Well, can I introduce you to somebody real quick? And now this takes a little bit of guts, and it's a little awkward if you haven't done it before, but you basically just repeat everything that that person just told you and say, hey, this is Alyssa. She's with Citizens Bank. She's actually just started about 3 months ago. Her family's actually from Denver. She moved here from Pittsburgh 3 years ago.
Right.
She loves dogs. She actually has two. They're little schnauzers. They're awesome. She loves them. And she's here today looking for people that are looking to open up accounts with Citizens on a corporate level. And Alyssa, this is Jane. I see that on your name
Okay.
tag. Jane, it's really nice to meet you. You introduce yourself to Jane as you introduce yourself to Alyssa, and Alyssa looks at you like this and goes, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing." What you did is a word that a lot of people don't use. It's edification. You just
Okay.
edified Alyssa to Jane. Alyssa now looks at you on a light, says, wow, he was listening. Wow, he introduced me. He made me feel good. He made me look good and gave me recognition in front of Jane. Jane's impressed because she now feels like she just met somebody. You just basically made two connections instantaneously that are going to respect you and like you that whole event. So when you send them a card in the follow-up, if you feel that that's necessary, or a LinkedIn message, they're
Okay.
gonna
They're going to
be a
pay
viable
attention. They're going
contact.
to remember you. They're going to remember
Yes.
that.
And that's the key, is being remembered. You don't want to be one of those business cards on somebody's desk that gets thrown in the trash 3 months later. So let's move on. Again, there's a lot we could talk about networking and some advanced
Before
tactics
you
and
go
things like
move
that.
on to the follow-up, I got what what advice do you have for folks who have a booth at these trade shows and you have the most unfortunate job of manning that booth and trying to make connections with people who
Okay.
probably don't want to talk to you, right?
Okay. So
Because
this
you
is
sponsor
very,
stuff. Sponsors are a necessary evil, but no one wants to go visit a sponsor. That's been
so I remember when I was at Jose Banks one time, and they had this like buy one tie get 30 free deal. I don't remember what it was. They
oh,
have
you
these
must have
ads all the time.
stocked up, man.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm just kidding. They have some good deals sometimes. And I was just driving by. I walked in, and you know what I can't stand is when somebody comes over and they're like, "Hey, how are you today, sir? Look, is there anything I can help you with? What is it you're looking for? I can be." And you're just like, "Yeah, I'm just looking." And it's kind of funny when somebody doesn't come up to me though. I'm kind of interested, like, what if that person didn't come up to me?
Yeah.
And I remember this one instance where this guy came up and goes, "Hey, that's a really nice tie you got there. Let me know if you need anything," and walked right away. I was like, "Well, that's cool." Like, he gave me my space, he paid me a compliment. So my advice is for people that are at booths or tables is stand in front of the table and not behind the table. Because honestly, what happens is you sit down in a chair and you realize, oh my gosh, this is work. I have to talk to a bunch of people I don't want to talk to. Or your people feel the same. They sit down and they just watch people walk by. Nothing happens. It's like throwing a fishing rod out there without any bait on it and expecting a fish to like stupidly go over and bite the hook and reel itself in. It's like, I mean, it doesn't happen. So you need to stand up in front of the table and have a clear, defined message of what you're going to say to people to stand out from everybody else, and be prepared to shake their hand, or in these days, give them the Spock symbol or a fist bump, or however you want to greet them, with an elbow, um, or hand them something tangible. Says, here, have a free blah blah blah. Glad you're here today. Whatever. You need to be constantly interacting with every single human coming by the entire time. And you can form
Really?
those people. Oh, yeah, you form them, every single person. Say, oh, hey, how are you? Like, what can I help you with today? Is there anybody here you're looking to meet that I can introduce you to? Oh, you want that? Oh, that's that table over there. Let me introduce you. And you pull them over to the other vendor and you say, this is Jack. He's looking for an IT solution because he just started a trading company and needs to build custom software. And I know you do that. So Jack, this is who you want to talk to. If you need any, widgets, you come talk to me. And then you walk back to your widget table, stand in front of it, and give people high fives. And if you if you help the other vendors are going to be like, huh, that dude or that gal is awesome, and they're just going to walk people to you and make introductions. The best key to a trade show is being friends with every single person that's bored out of their mind there, so they can look for an excuse to walk somebody over to your table so they can be cool to you next time. So it's all about,
Really? Now that's a
it's
good
not
one.
one as they go by with this fishing hook without bait on it. It's you throwing a net out there and bringing people to other tables and doing this and being a facilitator. And if you are the owner of a company, sitting behind a table, you're not going to do it. Hire somebody who is trained how to network with these people, because you're just going to sit back like this on your phone, look up, size somebody up and go, that guy's not wearing a tie, his boots, he's probably not even an IT person. Just let him walk by. You're just going to sit there and not do anything. And by the way, I'm speaking very broadly. Maybe when I say you, I mean people in general.
Right.
But that was the trade show question. Do you have any other questions before I go to follow up?
No, see, that's an interesting one. So you're saying leverage the vendor pool there, make friends with everyone, and leverage them to get more people coming into your conversation that you want to have.
How do you hire people at an event to work for you for free? You help them. That's it. You ask, what is it that why did you come to this trade show, sir? Oh, my boss sent me here because we want to buy an iGen 4 printer. Like, oh, an iGen what? I don't even know what the heck that is, but I know who sells that stuff. And you go right over there and you help somebody make a $100,000 sale. They're going to come over and be like, dude, thank you. What do you do? It's like, oh, I do this. I sell widgets. And like, oh, you know what? That guy in the red shirt over there is looking for a widget, whatever. Of course, I'm using widgets as, whatever solution, whatever.
See, I thought you might have said, stand out there with a coconut, man.
Yeah, for Monty Python and clickety clack them together. You know what? That would work too. It's amazing what you can do with a coconut. It's like, here you go, sir. Come with me, and you go cluck, and go ahead and take your fake horse from Monty Python over to you. And other people will be like, well, this guy's nuts. He just came over here with a coconut and delivered me a prospect. I mean, it's again, be funny, be weird, build relationships. You want to be remembered in a positive way. I mean, don't be a psycho. I mean, obviously,
right.
You don't want to go over the top, but when you have fun, you can't lose. So, I don't know. Let's go ahead and
go to follow up.
So, follow up is about making money, and what's really interesting is I always have a note card system, and it's funny. I'm looking at it on my desk right now, and there's about, I don't know, 50 to 60 note cards that have very specific purposes for me to meet with very specific individuals about things that are either going to generate revenue or build a relationship as a stepping stone to another relationship, or that are going to help sell a product or help create internships for students or open the gates for this or whatever. It's not about what you know, it's who you know. And if you have all of your goals written out on note cards until they actually come to fruition, they're going to take up real estate until you can write on there sold or initiated or mission complete. And it makes you feel good because now you have a pile of things and you accomplished your mission. And oftentimes the things written on these note cards are transcribed from a business card and said, hey, I met this person. They told me about their family that lives in California. The guy loves Balvenie 21. It's his favorite scotch. And you write down little things. So when it comes time for their birthday, you mail them a sampler set of Balvenie scotch, and they get it and they open it up and they go, oh my gosh, that guy is awesome. And you have an instant relationship. And a lot of times these lead to lifetime relationships where if you create such an impression in 4 minutes that they will remember you for the rest of their life. So I just got an email yesterday from a woman named Kelly who works for an IT company that took the time to send me an email message saying, I just want to let you know it was a pleasure working with you as a customer, and this is my last day. I just wanted to reach out to let you know I'm now the executive director of of this animal shelter out in whatever town, and I won't give any names. And the reason I think she sent me that message, because I don't know if she sent it to all of the clients. She was a customer service representative. I mean, why would she want to reach out to the customers and say goodbye? I think it was because I dropped her a note saying she's probably the best customer service representative that I've ever worked with. And we model our people to follow the exact attitude she's had on the phone. And I compared her to a company called Ruby Receptionists that has the best answering service that I've ever had, and we've used them. And I compared her standards to the same high standards they have. And it was just a simple little note. And she never forgot it, to the point where she sent me an email letting me know where she was going, so that we might stay in touch. And all I was a customer for this IT company that would call in every once in a while. She was just so nice on the phone. I had to let her know how I felt. Now she's in a position of influence in a totally different industry.
That's fantastic.
So when you're nice to people,
this takes discipline, Ethan. What you're describing requires active engagement. You can't do this off the cuff.
So it's really interesting. Follow up oftentimes, if you ever have, and this is in general and in life, if you have a very positive experience with somebody and you are impressed, you should stop everything, write a quick little note, and plop it in the mail, and they'll get it. And what that does is it tattoos that memory of you in their brain forever, or for a very, very long time, until you get an opportunity to do it again. This is going off topic a little bit, but I remember we were doing a grand opening for a steakhouse in Pittsburgh in 2017 in December.
Okay.
And this girl comes up to me and said, "So you're Ethan Nicholas, huh?" I was getting ready for this. I didn't know what was happening. It was a very pretty young woman, very professionally dressed, and said, "Hey, I never got a chance to thank you. You sent a note to my boss after you rented a tuxedo, saying how wonderful the customer service was. And I got a promotion because of that, and a pay raise. And it was one of the nicest things anybody had ever done for me." And she started to cry a little bit. I'm like looking around, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I was like, "Oh, you're welcome, you're welcome." And I shook her hand. "It's really nice to meet you." And now I think she's the executive director of a veterans organization, and she does something completely different from fashion. But it's amazing how a simple note that takes you 2 to 3 minutes to put together to drop in the mail has such an impact. I did the same thing with the former CEO of Eaton Corporation. And
Really?
I remember, yeah, I sent a note after I went to a tech council event, and his name was Jerry Whitaker at the time. And I remember everybody was standing in line after this breakfast briefing that they had, and just to shake his hand and introduce him to maybe have the opportunity to do business with Eaton. I mean, clearly a lot of people just wanted to meet Jerry. Well, I sent him a note, and it was handwritten on just a regular piece of printer paper, and I dropped it in the mail. And I thought to myself, at the time I was working for a print company. I said, "You know what? I'm in the neighborhood." So I showed up to Charrington. I walked up, I said, "Hey, I'm here to see Jerry Whitaker." And he says, "Do you have an appointment?" And I said, "Well, no, but I sent him a letter." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, his office is up there." And I walked in right past his gatekeeper, and I said, "Jerry, Ethan Nicholas, it's good to see you." He's like, "Ethan, he holds up this note that's sitting on his desk, goes, "Sit down." And his gatekeeper, about ready to kick me out, kind of closes the door because sees that everything's cool. And I sat down and then talked to Jerry for about 15 minutes. And
that's fantastic.
He walked me right over to the procurement person in the print department and said, I was so new to the print industry. They said, do you do offset printing? And I'm like, "I don't even know, but it's nice to know the contact who," and then kind of make that connection. So long story short, the handwritten note is, again, the key to follow up. If your job is to build relationships with people, to sell them a product or build a relationship or maintain that relationship, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if you have a product that's even mediocre and not even the best, you're still going to maintain that account because of that personal relationship and respect and attitude. So sending you meet 40 people at a trade show. You send handwritten notes to 5 people, and it comes down to discipline. And by the way, it's the same type of discipline that you need to stay healthy and work out. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've joined a gym and just never went, or bought some CD program called P90X,
Yeah.
where the speed comes out and says, all right, 90 days, you're going to be buff and cut.
Yeah,
Just
right.
forget the rest. Just do your best, forget the rest, whatever. And then after like day 6, you're like, all right, well, and then those DVDs collect dust. And it's self-discipline. If you can find the self-discipline in business to send handwritten cards to follow up after you formed and did your pre and all that stuff, you can't help but succeed despite yourself. And the tough part is actually doing it, is actually sitting down and making yourself do it, which is why I don't leave my office without this stack of notes being right there on top of my laptop before I open it.
These are the cards that you didn't throw
oh my
out.
gosh, I forgot to call that person. They're going to do this. And I was supposed to send an email intro about this. And you just can't forget. If it's there, it exists. You remove it from the pile. So follow-up is all about emails and handwritten notes and maintaining that relationship and making people feel good. So
are these techniques what you used when you started Pittsburgh Business Exchange?
Oh my gosh.
I think you started from scratch on this thing, right? So
if
how
we
do you
could
get
go
to
back 10 years.
Yeah.
So if I can, my wife runs the company now, by the way, and she does a great job. Her name's Kimberly. I have this directory here, and in it are 35,686 people, and I know their first name, last name, company, and job title, and it's just a tangible thing that I use as a prop to show people how much we've grown in 10 years. And we are the largest business networking and social chamber of commerce, if you will, in the Northeastern United States, because we started the foundation of this when it was just a Facebook group. And we needed to build relationships. I remember hiring 6 interns back in 2011 or 2010. And their job, I gave them all titles. I said, all right, this isn't a typical internship. You're going to help build the fabric of this company. And I brought them in, and I made them feel not just a part of the team, but a part of the family building this company. There was this one guy named Matt. To this day, we still use programs that he's developed. And there was Rachel and Jill and Stephanie and all these people. And we sat there and we would write hundreds of handwritten cards to people congratulating for their promotions because they were published in the Pittsburgh Business Times. So Pittsburgh Business Times puts out a great product, newspaper, notifications, and anytime somebody gets a promotion, we would just send them a handwritten note that said, we didn't even know these people. Dear John, dear Susan, congratulations on your recent promotion to the position of Chief Financial Officer for PPG. Okay. Your presence in the community is important, and we just wanted to thank you for your leadership and wish you the best on your new position. We'd also like to invite you to our next event, which is happening this date. And if you can't make that one, you can come to this date. We're looking forward to meeting you. Signed, Sasha, or Raquel, or whoever was working at the time, and it was interns, neatly handwritten on the stamp. When you hand write it, it bypasses the gatekeeper and gets through all of the things. It ends up on their desk, and they actually read it and go, huh. And we branded the company at the time, years ago, with all of these powerful people. And then when they saw our invitations come through, we saw all these people subscribing to our list or following us on Facebook or joining the LinkedIn group. And we created a strong base of leadership in Pittsburgh over the first couple of years with all these people getting promoted in the Pittsburgh Business Times. Thousands of handwritten cards. And that is a big key component to why we grew and why we continue to grow. It's funny because we don't have interns anymore, And we don't write very many handwritten cards because, you know, the thing is in self-automation because positive experience and positive word of mouth advertising now carries us. We're at that point of critical mass. Anyway, back to follow-up. Did you have any other questions about follow-up other than the power of the handwritten note?
Well, you know, all my questions right now is these unprecedented times that we're living in with everyone working remotely. What adjustments should we make, whether it be in networking is now electronic. I just did a tech council event where they did electronic, yeah, and you don't know who you're going to talk to because you're just, it's like speed dating networking kind of a thing is how the software sets it up. Um, you you know, ideally before that event, we would have looked at who we want to talk to and tried to reach out to them. Now, because it's all electronic and it's a random computer draw that says, well, maybe we'll meet this person, maybe we won't, we don't know, right? They're not in their office, so, and you don't have their home address, so you really can't, you don't know if your handwritten communication will get to them. Is there adjustments? What adjustments should be made?
So this is, again, this is really advanced stuff. And in this virtual world, what I'm learning to do is when I do send a note, I make a copy of it and I make a copy of the letter with the stamp on it too. And I just scan it into a PDF file. And if I send them an email to follow up and said, hey, I don't know if you got my note or not, but I just wanted to thank you again for the wonderful information you gave me about XYZ Corporation that helped me get this or get that, whatever your message is. And then they come back and say, well, I never got your note. And then you reply with a copy of the note, said, hey, I sent this to you 2 weeks ago. And they go, oh my gosh, that got redirected to my Florida address. I'm in North Carolina right now working virtually. Thank you so much for the note. I'm sure it'll surface at some point. And they saw that you made the effort and you documented it. So that's really advanced stuff, is actually making a copy of the note. Or a great app to use is Genius Scan, just like genius, that person's a genius. Genius Scan. Whenever before you send a note, you scan it into a PDF right from your smartphone and you add a page. So you do the address envelope first, and then you do the note second, and then it's in a PDF. So you have that handy if you need to use it later to prove that you actually did write a handwritten note. So that's one way to show people. And it's funny, they'll open it up and see the kind words that you wrote and be like, wow, I can't believe this person took the time to do that, even though they never got the note. Going back to virtual meetings, I've been on a number of calls where I see people on their beds and I can see their curtains and that their hair is wet and that they didn't put their contacts in. They're wearing their glasses, which isn't what they would typically.
Oh, if that's the worst,
they got so comfy that they forgot that people can still see that. And then they see somebody else doing the same thing, drinking a cup of coffee like this or eating Doritos. Or you look at the reflection of their glasses and you see their eyes, and their glasses are changing colors on these virtual calls because they're not even paying attention to you or the call. They're looking at their emails. They're looking at other things. Don't get caught. Show up professionally with a professional setting as best you can if you're working from home. People are going to judge you by what they see on their computer. You're going to stand out as a professional, or and be intentful and follow along, because a lot of times people will just scroll through all the panels of people and see who's really paying attention. And it's ironic because they're not paying attention. So if you're going to get on a Zoom call to listen to a speaker, everybody's watching you. You just can't see it. It's kind of weird. You have to put a little sign next to your computer, say everybody's watching you, have posture, pay attention, and nod and pay attention to the speaker. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be like, yeah, I remember that guy. His eyes were glued. He was engaged. He was professional. I don't know how I can do that. I'm zoomed out. But they respect that, and you get this virtual credibility because you have the patience and the leadership to pay attention throughout the entire call. That's important. That also takes discipline, especially for somebody like me who's always all over the place thinking.
I think we all are. It's we have to make this a disciplined part of our daily engagement.
Manoj,
That
let's rewind a little bit and go back to the during networking and
okay,
photos, selfies. I remember one time I was at a networking event, and I'll never forget this. And I had invited Miss Pennsylvania to come to a few of our events,
okay,
and she came and she wore her crown and she greeted people. It's not really what we do anymore. It was just kind of
right,
fun just to have some mix it up a little bit. And she met a ton of people, and she appreciated that. And I remember showing up to the Heinz History Center for uh, some networking event that wasn't my own, and this woman comes over to me and she's beautiful as ever and goes, "Oh my gosh, Ethan, how are you? Can I take my picture with you?" I was like, "Yeah,
okay,
sure. Yeah, sure." So I turn around, she takes a selfie and she posts it on social media and says, "Hey, I bumped into my friend Ethan, blah, blah, blah." And when somebody asks you, "Can I take a picture with you?" It's this almost instant like, wow, this person likes me enough to want to take a picture with me. It makes you feel good, makes you feel like a celebrity for half a second. And you can do that to people at events. Manoj, if you say to the IT director of a giant corporation, says, "Excuse me, do you mind if I take my picture with you real quick? I'd love to get a photo with you." And of course, what do you think they're going to say? They're going to like take their lapels, go like this, and say, "Absolutely." They're going to fix their
yeah,
tie because, and you're going to be shocked. The message that you're sending is, "I respect you. I like you. I'm proud to be here at this moment," and you're making them feel good at the same time. Now you have the selfie, and you can turn around and say, "I'm going to text this to you. What's your cell phone number?"
oh, and there you go,
And they go, "Oh, it's usually because they're big, it's some out of state thing." And
right.
then you send it to them right then and there. And I only do that if I don't already have their cell phone number, because usually on their business card they actually put their cell phone number on there, which is unique. If it's not on there, ask them for their cell phone number and tell them you're going to send them a selfie. Now you can send them a text later on when there's useful content, and you see something in the Business Times that said so and so is about to merge with this company and they're in search of an IT company, and you take a picture of the article and text it to that person who provides that service. They say, "Yeah, we're already looking into this, but I can't believe you remember that. Thank you for the information." You're now engaged in conversation via text, the most personal way of communicating with somebody directly. So getting their contact information via cell it's almost, you give them that warm feeling of asking for a photo with them. They open the door and let you inside and give you their cell phone without even thinking, because they're just so into that moment. And then they get that, and then they remember what you look like, who you are, and they have your number for future. It's crazy.
That's a really cool idea. That's a really simple. Everything you've talked about in this past hour, and I've been listening very intently to this, has been about techniques and methods and approaches to get inside people's heads. Because once you're inside them and you've created that connection, now a lot of conversation can take place.
So one final note, because I think we're almost at that time
We
where you're
are.
about to wrap up. Um, you don't even need to be good at networking if you're a master at invitations. And I'll explain this. Again, this comes down to actual mail. I belong to the Pittsburgh Downtown Rotary Club. Probably, if I can think, it's one of the best business opportunities to actually network. And it's very consistent. It's every Wednesday at noon. Used to be at the Omni William Penn. They move things around. You can visit them online. I I'm the program chair, or former program chair, but I still invite speakers to come and speak. If I find somebody completely interesting that I would like to get to know, that that would behoove me to know that person, or that would add to my future, or would be good for, that would just be mutually beneficial or whatever, and I want that relationship and I don't know that person, I send them an invitation to speak at the club. But do you remember when I sent you an invitation to speak?
Yes, I do.
I wrote you a form letter saying, hey, we only invite the best
I
and the
remember
best.
that.
And it's funny, you open it up, it's typed, it's signed, it's on this linen
Yeah, it's
letterhead, and it's just,
really, yeah.
you're like, wow, we were requesting the honor of your presence at any Wednesday at noon after June, and I planned like 8 months ahead. And I remember you telling me the story about, oh, how security is so weird, how if somebody knew how to break into your cell phone, they could do it right now. The things the government could follow you, how we're all open to this hacking and just scare the crap out of people. And I said, oh my gosh, that's a wonderful topic. I want you to come and scare the crap out of everybody at my Rotary meeting. And
oh man,
so I sent you this letter, and it's so funny. Here we are talking about networking. You could send a letter like that to anybody who's a real pro, an athlete, politician, former actor or actress, and they will get it and be like, well, this is really cool. And plus, you're doing it in the name of service through Rotary. And then you introduce that person. You introduce that person to the group. They're your host. You welcome them. I often will invite them 15 minutes early, sit down with them, get to know them, and find a little bit about them so I can make their bio a little bit more interesting when I introduce them. So it's not the typical introduction they typically get. And then I send a follow-up note, or if it's a woman and it's appropriate, I'll send them a nice little basket of flowers. If it's a gentleman, sometimes like a basket of like Pittsburgh Steelers stuff. And all of a sudden, you text that person. I remember Kevin Boulding from the YMCA. What a first-class guy. I got to know him through inviting him to speak at our series, and he just sent me a text message today saying, hey, I'm really sorry that I missed the Opal event last week. How did it go? And this all started with a letter inviting him to speak 2 years ago. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is advanced networking without ever even leaving your home. Send somebody an invitation to speak if you belong to another group.
That's fantastic.
That's all I have.
Well, Ethan, I got to tell you, I mean, we're at the hour, but wonderful tips, great knowledge. And I think given the current climate, or even if it wasn't the current climate, what you are talking about is so applicable to anyone, whether they're looking to find a new job, start a company, enhance sales, whatever it is that they are looking to do. Without that human relationship factor, it's almost impossible to do it. And you have shared and enlightened us quite a bit, and we appreciate that. Is there anything that you need to plug at the end of the show here?
Well, first of all, I'd love to give a plug to Slippery Rock University. It is a wonderful institution, and if there are any students out there looking to continue their education or sign up for some programs that a lot of people don't even know we have, such as engineering, physician's assistant, just go to www.sru.edu and have a look. I couldn't flourish and have these conversations out there without the support of Slippery Rock University, who is basically our sponsor of this call today.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining the show, and hope to catch you next week on another episode. And Ethan, thank you so much for being here.